What is going on, everybody? Today we're talking about the spring thaw and how to check and maintain your property to avoid or prevent this in the future. These are also great homeowner maintenance care items that you should be doing anyways, whether your basement is flooding or not. Spring in Prince George is here. You can finally see your lawn again. But there is the thing most homeowners don't realize. The moment that snow starts melting, your home is under attack. Not in a dramatic way, in a very literal building science way. The freeze-thaw cycle, the rising water table, the ground shifting, all of that is happening right now underneath your feet, working against your foundation, your roof, your plumbing, your HVAC system. And we're going to talk about all that today. If you ignore this stuff, you're going to find out the hard way. Maybe at your next home inspection, maybe when you flip on your hose bib in May and water starts pouring out of your basement ceiling. I've seen it, I've lived through it, it's expensive. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through some hyper-local spring maintenance checklists built specifically for Prince George. Not some generic checklist, this is the stuff that actually matters here, in our climate, with our housing stock, with our specific risks. So there's 3 zones we're going to talk about: your foundation and exterior, your roof and gutters, and your HVAC and interior systems. And before we get into it, one thing I want to flag right now, there is something I'm going to cover near the end of the video in zone 3. That is a huge percentage of homeowners in this city have never checked. A health and safety issue that can quietly tank your property's value. So stick around for that, but let's get into it. First, we're going to chat about exterior and foundation. Your number one job in early spring is managing water. Full stop. When that snow melts, it has to go somewhere. But in Prince George, the ground is still frozen solid underneath the surface. It can't absorb that water yet, so it runs. And if you have snowbanks piled up against your foundation from a winter of shoveling, that meltwater runs straight down your foundation wall, looking for any crack it can find to get into your basement. So spend an hour, go around your house with a shovel, and save yourself a lot of headache. The fix is simple, but most people don't do it. Move the snow at least 5 feet away from the house. Expose the grade from your foundation. Make sure the ground slopes away from your home, not toward it. This matters a lot for properties down in the bowl. Lower elevation, higher water table, way more surface runoff. If that is your situation, this is not optional maintenance. This is asset protection. So the second thing we're going to check in on is your hose bibs. Before you turn the exterior water back on in the spring, inspect the spigot itself for any cracks or deformities. A deep cold snap can freeze water trapped in that line if a hose was left attached in the fall. And when water freezes, it expands. Here is what nobody tells you though. The crack usually happens just inside the building envelope, the building walls. You turn the water on in May to wash your truck and water is spraying inside your wall. So the protocol for this is to inspect the bib. Then have a second person downstairs washing the interior pipe while you slowly open the valve. Any drip, any hiss, shut it off. This is essentially important in older homes. Prince George has a lot of galvanized steel plumbing from the 50s and 60s, and a lot of homes from the late 80s and 90s that still have poly B pipe. Thermal stress in the spring is often what pushes those systems past the breaking point. Okay, so let's get into our third check, walking your foundation. Walk your foundation the entire perimeter this spring and look for new cracks, not existing ones, new ones that weren't there last fall. Frost heave in northern BC is real. The soil freezes, then it expands, and then it collapses in the thaw. That movement exerts serious pressure on your foundation. Uneven thaw means differential settlement. That creates cracks. A vertical crack, monitor it. A horizontal crack, any bowing in the wall, that is time to call a structural engineer and do not sit on that. Get on top of it, get ahead of it, and be proactive. Prince George has a lot of permanent wood foundations as well. You'll see these are kind of prevalent in the St. Lawrence Heights areas. Unlike concrete, these are framed with pressure-treated lumber and plywood. They perform well thermally, but they are especially vulnerable to moisture. If you have a PWF, check that the exterior vapor barrier hasn't been damaged by shifting ground, and check the base of the interior studs for any softness or moisture. If you have some bubbling below your trim on the ground, those are good signs as well. Foundation repairs are the most expensive category on any home inspection. We're talking 15 to 50 grand or more. Catching this in April instead of when a buyer's inspection finds it, or you just find it on a spring day, that is a huge difference. Okay, so let's get into zone 2, and we're going to start talking about the roof and the exterior drainage. In Prince George, the tree canopy makes this a very specific local issue. Pine and spruce trees shed needles year-round. In spring, you've got cottonwood fluff, seed pods, pollen, all of it lands in your gutters. Pine needles are acidic. They mat down and stick. When they mix with the granular runoff of your asphalt shingles, they'll kind of form a solid plug in your downspouts. When the spring rains hit, a blocked gutter overflows. The water goes right down your siding wall and back towards your foundation. Everything in zone 1 gets undone by a clogged gutter. Sometimes it can be that simple. Concentrated water at one spot will find an easier way into your foundation. Clear your gutters before the rain season. Make sure your downspout extensions discharge at least 5 feet from the house. In heavily treed neighborhoods, this is a 3 to 4 times a year job. So depending on where you live and all the beautiful mature trees you have, will definitely set out the cadence that you need to do this in your home. Second item in zone 2 is ice damming on your roof. Here's how it works. Heat escapes from an attic that isn't perfectly insulated or sealed. That warmth melts the snow on the upper roof. The meltwater runs down toward the cold eave where it refreezes into a solid dam. Water pools behind it, works its way back under your shingles through the roof deck into your walls. Prince George has a lot of log homes and cathedral ceiling builds. Both are highly vulnerable to this because of how heat moves through these assemblies. Walk your eaves this spring. Look for lifted or cracked shingles, especially at the lower edge of your roof. Check for damaged flashings in the valleys. Inside, look for straining on some upper walls and ceilings, bubbling paint, or some moisture near upper level window frames. A roof replacement in Canada can go from $5,000 up to $30,000 plus, depending on the roof size. Catching this early means a targeted repair, not a full replacement. So the third item is your deck, specifically the footings, the posts, and the ledger board. Frost heave will pick up deck footings that aren't set below the frost line. When the ground thaws unevenly, the deck settles into a warped or sloped position. That creates shear stress at the ledger board, the piece that anchors your deck to the house. A compromised ledger board is a life safety issue and an immediate red flag on any home inspection. Check your deck this spring. Look for boards with gaps, posts that aren't plumb, and make sure there's a zero wood to soil contact anywhere. Zone 3, this section has 2 items that most homeowners in the city have never dealt with, and one of them is a health risk. First, your sump pump. This is your last line of defense against basement flooding during the big melt. Test it right now. Pour water into the pit until the flow triggers and the pump kicks on. Watch it run. That's your test. But here's the part most people skip. Get a backup. Because the northern spring also means windstorms. Trees standing in ground that just turned to mud lose their grip. They fall on power lines, the power goes out, and an AC-powered sump pump with no power is just a plastic bucket in your basement. A battery backup gives you 4 to 8 hours of continuous pumping during an outage. A water-powered backup will run indefinitely if you're on city water. If you're rural on a well, a standby generator is the more complete solution. Your well pump also needs electricity. It sounds like a really far-fetched scenario, but you're going to love that you got that backup when the scenario actually plays out. Hopefully it doesn't. The next item in this zone is we're going to talk about wildfire smoke prep for your HVAC system. Because once all the water goes, everyone starts worrying about the smoke and the fire smoke that can come in. Sometimes it can be very abrasive and heavy. The summers are getting worse. Smoke in Prince George is kind of a seasonal thing now, unfortunately. And that smoke contains fine particle matter, around a PM 2.5. That gets into your lungs and your bloodstream. It's a genuine health risk. The The most impactful thing you can do is upgrade your furnace filter to a MERV 13. That's MERV 13. And you'll see all these names when you go look at furnace filters, if it seems a little bit foreign right now. That captures up to 85% of the fine particles from wildfire smoke. But don't just go buy a HEPA filter and force it in. Standard blower motors aren't built for that kind of resistance. You can freeze your coils, spike your energy bill, and burn out your motor quick. MERV 13 is kind of the sweet spot for most homes. If your system can't handle it, a standalone HEPA air filter in your main living space is your next best move. And if you have an HRV, serve it this spring and learn how to switch it into recirculation mode during active smoke events. Next, let's head into the attic. Check your attic for moisture and mold. Here's what happens. All winter, warm, humid air from your living spaces rises. If your ceiling isn't perfectly air sealed, that air gets into the attic through pot lights, attic hatches, through bathroom exhaust fans. When it hits the frozen attic space, it turns into frost. It coats the roof deck, the rafters, the nails, all winter long. Then the spring hits. All of that frost melts at once. It dumps into your insulation, soaks it, compresses it, drips through your ceiling, and homeowners think they have a roof leak. They call a roofer, the roofer goes up, and everything looks fine. Because it isn't a roof issue, it's an air sealing issue. Look for rusted nails protruding through the sheathing. That's your tell. Heavy rust means significant frost accumulation happening there. Compressed wet insulation is the other sign. If mold has developed, that requires professional remediation. Finding it now and fixing the air seal is the best move. And now, the item I mentioned at the top of this video. The thing most homeowners here have never checked: radon gas. Radon is a radioactive gas that forms naturally from uranium in the soil and bedrock. Colorless, odorless, you have no idea it's there. It seeps in through foundation cracks, sump pumps, around pipe injunctions, through exposed earth and crawl spaces. Radon is the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. Here in Prince George, we are in a major hot zone. According to the BC Lung Foundation, nearly 1 in 3 homes test above the Health Canada safety threshold of 200 BQ per meter of volume. In fact, a dedicated study by the BC CDC and the University of Calgary recently flagged Prince George as the one of the cities where at least 1/4 of its residents are living with an elevated radon levels due to our unique northern geology. Spring is the right time to test this. The home is still sealed up for winter. You get the most accurate readings. Pick up a certified test kit at a hardware store or order one online. The 90-day test gives you the most reliable data. If levels come back high, mitigation systems are effective and not that expensive. But here's the bottom line for your property value. If a buyer's inspection tests during your sale and finds elevated radon levels, that's a deal killer or a significant price renegotiation. Find out now on your own terms and get ahead of these items that they might find on your home inspection. Okay, so let's recap what we talked about today. There's 3 zones, 9 items, all built for what our climate actually does to homes here. Zone 1, move the snow away from your foundation. Test your hose bibs before turning them on and walk your foundation and check for new cracks, especially if you have a permanent wood foundation. Zone 2, clear organic debris from gutters before the spring rains. Inspect your eaves or ice dam damage and check your deck footings and ledger board for frost heave movement. Zone 3, test your sump pump and add a backup system. Upgrade your furnace filter to a MERV 13 for wildfire season, and check your attic for compressed insulation, rusty nails, and do a radon test. None of these are complicated. All of them show up in a home inspection if you ignore them, and every single one is cheaper to fix now than when a buyer is at the table. This is what living in Prince George looks like from a home ownership standpoint. And if you're thinking about buying here or just moved in, then this is the stuff nobody explains to you. I hope this was useful, and if it was, share it with another homeowner in your neighborhood. Navigating Prince George real estate doesn't have to be stressful. I have seller's guides, relocations guides, and a home buyer's guide, and we have a home buyer's program. On top of the buyer's guide, The Homebuyers Program will send you exclusive weekly videos and emails to walk you through the process step by step. Just comment the word guide below, tell me which one fits your situation, and I'll send the link right over. And when you're ready to actually look at homes or list your property, the easiest way to connect is to call, text, or email. All those details are in the description, and we'll see you in the next one.